Next Star Wars film goes to Game of Thrones creators, and not everyone's happy. Some disgruntled Game of Thrones fans say David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will be the ruin of Star Wars. Ruin? Did somebody say ruin? Well, look, guys, I don't know what you have in store for us, but if that is your plan, I got news for you. Somebody already beat you to the punch about 2 years ago.
Toasty!
How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. So, talk about a mixed bag as far as news is concerned. So now we all know that D&D, these guys who do Game of Thrones, they're going to be doing a movie, well, a trilogy, a Star Wars trilogy. And the other guy that was also going to be doing a Star Wars trilogy, reportedly, was Rian Johnson. And Rian Johnson, for months and months and months, has continued to say that he's working on it. Him and his buddy Ram are putting together ideas. They're spitballing. It's a lot of blue sky stuff. You know, they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. Basically the same type of technique they used to do The Last Jedi. Whenever anybody ever asks Rian Johnson whether or not his trilogy is canceled, because, you know, every couple of months it pops up and it says, well, Rian Johnson won't be directing his trilogy anymore. And then somebody, you know, invariably goes, inevitably, I should say, goes to his Twitter feed. And, you know, they ask, they poke and they prod, and eventually they'll say, hey, Rian Johnson, are you directing your trilogy still? Has it been canceled? And, you know, he replies usually with something like, yep. And, you know, that really, there's been nothing. There's no details, just kind of the vaguest description that he's working on something that has to do with a premise that takes place in the Star Wars universe somewhere in a corner that we've never seen before with characters we've never heard of. And I mean, for that matter, we're all working on a Star Wars trilogy. You know, I mean, by that logic, we might as well all be working on something for the Disney company. I mean, we couldn't do any worse, you know, than what we've seen from him. So in the midst of all of that, after Rian Johnson got his trilogy announced, before The Last Jedi even took to theaters and basically burned the fan community to the ground, you know, he received this trilogy, and then after that, Benioff and Weiss were announced to also be coming on board to do a trilogy in the Star Wars universe. And it was well-received news. And you know, Game of Thrones is a very popular show. Now, full disclosure, I have not watched Game of Thrones. It's something I full well intend on doing. Every night I come home, I say, let me start binging this thing, and then every night I get tired and I fall asleep. So there's my enthusiasm. But all I've seen lately is nothing but articles and reviews and videos, and people are absolutely losing their shit over what's been going on in the 8th and final season. And this now is cause for alarm. And Star Wars fans have been put through the ringer, and a lot of them are shell-shocked as a result of the fallout from The Last Jedi. Now, look, you can say, get over it, you know, that was over a year ago, it's time to move on. But the fear is, if these two guys come in and they now have a trilogy of their own, will they go ahead and just do something incredibly ridiculous?
He's just killing it!
That ends up subverting the expectations of Star Wars fans, rubbing them the wrong way, and just sending them right over the falls again. It would be like a Rian Johnson situation all over. So, you know, and look, the bottom line with this is that, as far as we know, Rian Johnson is still, there's no concrete evidence that he's got a trilogy that he's going to be moving forward with, as far as Bob Iger is concerned, and Disney and Star Wars. And, you know, until he just outright comes and says, yeah, you know what, I've moved on. I'm not going to be directing. It's still this lingering question. But the fact that these guys have leapfrogged over Rian Johnson, they were hired after him, and they'll get their movie first. It does bode well if you're somebody who never wanted to see Rian Johnson anywhere near Star Wars ever again. And I happen to be one of those people. So let's move forward with this article. This is over on CNET.com. Our author is Amanda Kuzer. So let's breeze through this and see what's doing here. Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will soon be going from swords to lightsabers. They will helm the new Star Wars movie after 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. We already knew Disney had signed a pair up for a Star Wars venture, but we also knew Disney had an unnamed Star Wars movie penciled in for 2022. Chairman Bob Iger revealed on Tuesday how those puzzle pieces fit together. The next movie that we release will be theirs, meaning Benioff and Weiss, and we're not saying more about that. Iger said during the Moffat-Nathanson 6th Annual Media and Communications Summit in New York. Iger said he hasn't seen the finished Rise of Skywalker yet, but he expects it will be extremely popular. Sure, everybody turns out for a good car wreck. He said it would be smart to take a bit of a hiatus after the film's release. Yeah, you know what? There's two sides to that coin. The one is, maybe people need to kind of reset and get away from Star Wars a little bit, especially the general public. The fans, the hardcore fans, all we really want is good Star Wars. So if you gave us really good, excellent Star Wars, story-driven, great narrative, excellent action set pieces, we would show up in force, no pun intended, every single year. We wouldn't be able to get enough. We'd buy the merchandise, we'd buy the action figures, we buy all the collectibles. The problem is if you can't turn out that level, that quality that we'd like to see, that we've come to expect, or we used to come to expect, then nobody's going to go see the movies. And here you are. It's probably in the best interest of Disney to pause for a moment and then reset and then try to come back very strong. And maybe, just maybe, after 3 years, the fans will actually be yearning for some more Star Wars, and that might bode well for them. It's trying to build up the anticipation, which isn't a bad thing, but it all depends on what happens once the next movie hits the theaters, because it could all go wrong very quickly. Disney settled on 3 years as the proper amount of time for a breather. That's how we ended up with 2022 as the next Star Wars film release date, though there will be Disney Plus streaming television shows to keep fans engaged in the meantime. So we're going to get The Mandalorian, we'll also get The Clone Wars, and we'll get the Cassian Andor. Which, every single Star Wars fan is literally climbing the walls in anticipation for the Cassian Andor show on Disney+. Benioff and Weiss are wrapping up what has been a largely triumphant 8-season run on Game of Thrones, but their storytelling decisions during the final episodes have triggered criticism from some fans of the show. That worries me. Unhappy viewers took to Twitter to suggest the pair, known informally, as D&D, might ruin Star Wars. And here's a couple of tweets. D&D have already ruined Game of Thrones. Now they're going to ruin Star Wars. Who thought this was a good idea? I need a word. And Christian Lemus writes, please do not use D&D for Star Wars. They are not good writers. Just look at the mess that is Game of Thrones now. No Rian Johnson or Weiss and Benioff. Disney, stop killing Star Wars. Disney, Star Wars fans are just really gun shy, They want to be certain that this franchise is in the hands of people who are absolutely capable. They don't even want a hiccup, a blemish on a resume. These sorts of reactions show the depth of feelings around beloved franchises like Game of Thrones and Star Wars. We've seen the online wrath fans can rain down when they get upset. The preemptive anger on Twitter around Benioff and Weiss taking on Star Wars feels a lot like shaking your fist at an uncertain future. Maybe you don't like what Daenerys did. Maybe you wanted a different fate for your Game of Thrones favorites. Does that mean D&D's Star Wars vision will suck? We have to wait until 2022 to find out. Okay, so it's just, it never ends. Just when we thought we were in the clear, this whole thing starts. So here's the deal. Now, from what I understand, these guys ran Game of Thrones on HBO pretty well for the first several seasons. Now, it's my understanding that I think it was season 6 was the point where they kind of went in their own direction. They ran out of material from the books, and that's where things a lot of fans point to started to go wrong. So, if these guys have established literature to work from, and they follow the guide in front of them, are they better suited to direct and tell a story that already is established, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end? So if these guys come in, now everyone thinks that they're going to come in and possibly do Knights of the Old Republic. So if these guys come in and they decide to tell the story of Darth Revan and Malik, is that going to then go in a direction where they take it and put their own spin on it and send the fans to an absolute tailspin, and just they come running at them with pitchforks and torches? Or do they stick to the plan? Or are they just going to tell their own story, so that way when they create their own characters, whatever they do doesn't fall under the scrutiny of the fan community? I'm interested in seeing what direction these guys decide to go. If they do actually decide to tell a story that has kind of been established already, it probably would be in their best interest to stick to the blueprint. If they want to go and be storytellers, and I believe they said fairly recently that Star Wars needs to get back to the business of telling great stories. So if that's what these guys want to do, if they want to come in and they want to craft their own story, much like we thought Rian Johnson was busy at work toiling all this time doing, which we've seen nothing, not a speck of information from him. But if these guys, if that's what they want to do, if they want to come in and they want to create their own characters and kind of build off of the universe and play in that sandbox and just kind of have it go off in its own direction, so none of the characters that we know and love are tarnished or damaged, or our expectations are subverted, anything like that, that might be the best option for them. So I really don't know. I'm curious as hell to see what happens as time goes on and information slowly begins to leak out about what this project is, where it's going to take place, and if there are going to be any established characters that they're going to be using to tell the story for their trilogy. So anyway, what do you guys think about this? Are you nervous? Are you scared? Because if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, it seems like a lot of people now have lost faith in these guys' ability to tell a story. Or are you okay with what they have done in season 8, and you kind of like the direction that they've taken the show in down the stretch? I don't know what the hell is going on. All I see is everybody's in a frenzy, and there's been a lot of F-bombs that people have dropped on these two guys and the show, and they are pissed off. So anyway, sound off, guys. Let me know what you think about this, and that's pretty much it. I mean, we'll continue to follow this as things unfold. I guess once Game of Thrones finally comes to its ultimate conclusion, the next thing these guys are going to do, they're going to turn, pivot, and jump right into Star Wars. And as the months go on, we'll be hearing more and more information. So that's all I got right now, guys. Please feel free to like, comment down below, subscribe if this is your first time here. I will see you guys sometime soon. As always, thanks for watching. Be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.